Wish TV. All Indiana Politics
is your premier source for Indiana politics.
Focusing on issues that matter to you.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage, exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders, expert analysis on critical legislation. From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
Central Indiana. Wish TV is now live on YouTube TV and Hulu Live, offering more hours of local programming than any other station. Search for Wish TV or look for CWH on both YouTube TV and Hulu Live to find us. Watch local news, sports, and lifestyle shows live from Wish TV. You can still catch Wish TV free over the air or stream it live on wishtv.com and on the free Wish TV mobile apps. Wish TV, available in more places for the latest news, weather, and sports.
Don't let high golf rates drive you out of bounds. Save big with the Wish TV Great Golf Club Card.
Central Indiana's largest golf club card membership is back for the 8th season with more courses than ever before. Save over 75% on tee times at 27 Central Indiana golf courses. All you need is the Wish TV Great Golf Club Card. Cards are valid for the entire 2026 golf season.
Great courses, great savings. Score your Great Golf Club Card today.
Now, from Wish TV, your local news source, this is All Indiana Politics.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to All Indiana Politics. I'm Garrett Bergquist, in for Phil Sanchez. Congressman Jefferson Shreve tells me he's optimistic Congress will fund a replacement for the Roudebush VA Hospital. Shreve was just named to the powerful House Appropriations Committee. Congress is beginning to review the Trump administration's 2027 budget requests. We also caught up on the war with Iran and a bill he's pushing to speed up the approval process for mining critical minerals. And joining us now is Congressman Jefferson Shreve. Congressman, welcome back to the show.
Thank you very much, Garrett. Good interview with you.
So you've just been named to the House Appropriations Committee. How did that come about, and what can we expect from you on that committee?
So there was a vacancy on committee and a particular exigency with which to fill the vacancy because the appropriation cycle has just begun in earnest in the House. I competed with four other people. In the end, four other people that formally submitted their names for consideration by the steering committee. So the process involves applying for a seat amongst about 30 other members that are senior, and you ask and you make your case for a seat on that committee. And I went through that and was thankful, honored to have been selected to serve.
What will be some of your priorities specific to Indiana as we get into the budget process?
We'll take 12 appropriations bills that essentially fund the whole of our federal government over the next 4 or 5 months. We've got a bogey of completing this process under regular order, which is a priority of Speaker Johnson and our chairman. Regular order. We're going to hustle to get this done thoughtfully, prudently by July 4th. And so I come into this just as this committee really gets to work. It's going to be, candidly, a steep learning curve. I'm going to give it my all. My priorities will be to advocate, of course, for the district I represent, Central, Southern, Eastern Indiana, to advocate for our state, but to look out for the financial safeguards, well-being, and security of America.
I do want to get to a couple of top-line budget items that have been in the public for the last few weeks. The president's proposed budget would cut several domestic programs. It would eliminate the low-income housing energy assistance program. More than 120,000 households in Indiana got heating assistance through LifeKeep in 2024. That's calculated about $4 billion worth of savings. Is that worth the potential cost to those households?
I don't know. Here's why. I mean, it hasn't come before the committee yet. I spent 10 hours in committee on my very first day on the MILCON, Military Veterans hearing. Really thoughtful process. A lot of the push and the pull from the Democrats and the Republicans and people offering testimony. When it comes down to financial subsidies, a backstop for low-income resources or credits for something like heating assistance, I'm going to listen intently to the back and forth and then vote in the way that reflects the values and interests of our district and our state. It's not just the president's budget and that which comes over from OMB. Much of this comes up through the authorizing committees of Congress.
During the Milcon hearing that you were in, did the replacement for the Richard L. Roudebush VA hospital come up?
Subject matter in the hearing, no. From the standpoint of funding in the budget, yes, there is money in there for a portion of that. So I would characterize my view of the likelihood of replacement Roudebush facility as optimistic, and more so than I think our citizens, your viewers, might have been able to hold a year or two ago. I think we're making good headway in that direction. I'm supportive of it. I've been out there several times, most recently with our VA secretary. I was just at a VA clinic that we're opening up on the east side of Marion County. We had the groundbreaking for that, and there's another even more substantial clinic going in Hamilton County in the 5th Congressional District. So I think our veterans, whether they are voters within the district I represent or across our state, are seeing that support that they have earned with those resources and access to care through our VA medical system coming in materially. I mean, we're seeing it on the East Side facility. There's a commitment to a facility in Hamilton County and an increasing likelihood of a replacement Roudebush facility.
I also want to discuss the war with Iran, since until your appointment, you served on the House Foreign Affairs Committee. The 60-day window for the War Powers Resolution is about to expire. Should Congress vote to authorize further action, and have you heard anything about any such votes planned?
There's not a planned vote. The president's got clearly 60 days and arguably a 30-day extension. So the hard stop is probably 90 days. And yeah, this Congress ought to be meaningfully involved in that decision to extend or to cut it off. No supplemental has come across yet. In terms of any funding supplemental that might come before this Congress, not just appropriations, but the Congress generally, there's nothing to respond to react to at this point.
Before we go, I want to talk about your domestic mining bill, the FAST Act. How exactly would this work?
You know, in this arena, I have learned so much about the importance of critical minerals. You know, we might hear and think a little bit about those back home in Indiana. But in part, as you noted, from my standpoint of my work on foreign affairs, so many of the critical minerals that undermine so much of our life day to day are coming out of parts of the world that aren't friendly to America. The People's Republic of China controls a significant portion of the critical minerals that power the phones, the batteries in the devices that we use, in the vehicles that we move around on, in our transportation infrastructure. Part of our national security is ensuring that America continues to have access to those critical minerals. And so the act that I advanced with a colleague of mine, Blake Moore from Utah, accelerates the process to permitting and access to those minerals, so we can pull more of those from our own soil, from our own hemisphere, and from friendly nations to decrease our dependence on unfriendly nations like China.
Coming up, voters tell us cost of living issues top their concerns going into the primary. I ask one voter how that affects her thinking going into the voting booth. Welcome back. One voter tells me everything at the ballot box comes down to cost of living. Both Republicans and Democrats have made cost of living issues central to their 2026 platforms, but voters say things are not getting any better.
So we got 1 minus 4. Seems with a number.
It's late afternoon. Lamia Nelson has only a short time to help her son with homework and do some house cleaning. She has a doctor's appointment soon and another job after that.
I'm doing agency, or I have to do side work, as in our terms, hustling, DoorDash, Amazon. I'm an esthetician, I'm a nail tech. So I'm constantly doing something, work involved to make money, to make ends meet, to continue to move forward.
That's in addition to her nursing job and her own home health care service. She tells me it's still not enough to support her 3 children. Federal Reserve data shows the inflation-adjusted median household income in Indiana dropped by more than $2,000 a year between 2023 and 2024. That's the most recent year for which data is available. The Consumer Price Index for March showed overall prices rose by a little more than 3%. Much of that came from a 12% increase in energy costs, driven largely by rising gas prices. Nelson, though, says rent and utilities are her biggest concerns.
I'm going on 8 years here. When I first moved here, rent was $900. We're in I think it's about 960 square feet. 3-bedroom, 1 bath, attached garage, and that was at $900 a month. We are now at $1,850.
The economy is weighing heavily on voters' minds going into the primary. A poll of 1,500 voters conducted in February for the conservative group Americans for Prosperity found 37% of respondents listed cost of living as their top priority. That was by far the most cited category. An Ipsos poll conducted last October produced similar results.
It would behoove anyone that is running for office right now that they talk about this and what they're going to do to try to help bring prices down, or what they think they can do.
Nelson starts a new job soon. She's also about to move to another place that costs a little less. She tells me she's not sure if any candidates have the answer.
I mean, of course, we're gonna want to go with who's gonna help us. But who is gonna help us in reality?
As a reminder, early voting runs until noon on May 4th. Primary day itself is on May 5th. We've made it easy for you to check your voter registration. Take out your phone and scan that QR code on your screen. That will take you to the As Seen On section of our website, wishtv.com. I've written a guide that includes links to the Secretary of State's voter information portal. I've also included a guide to that website, along with updated information on voter ID requirements. Coming up, lawmakers question a new role for Indiana's former Director of Child Services. We take the question to Indiana's best political team.
The opinions expressed by guests on this broadcast are solely those of the individual speaking and do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of Wish TV.
And welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome in 2 members of Indiana's best political team, Democrat Carly Macer and Republican Matt Bell. Welcome back.
Good to see you, sir. Good to see you, ma'am.
Yep.
So let's begin with that cost of living story we just heard. This question is for both of you, since you're both former state legislators. Based on your own experiences, how much of a role will cost of living issues play specifically in the upcoming primary? Carly, you go first.
Yeah, I think it's going to play a very big role this year. I think it's really all about the details. I think that voters want to, this really matters to them. It is affordability, and the cost of living is what we're all talking about right now. It's more than gas prices. It's more than just rent and child care. It's all the cost combined of what truly matters to everyday Hoosiers and all Hoosiers across the board right now.
Matt, how about you?
I think affordability is a determining issue for most voters across the state. And I think Republicans are very tuned into that message. And I think you're hearing Republican primary candidates talk about the actions they've taken to address affordability. You know, passing a property tax plan that included more than $1 billion in savings for Hoosiers over the next 5 years. The governor suspending the gas tax to give relief to Hoosier drivers. You know, I think Republicans are acting on what they're hearing, which is a call to make things more affordable. We now have a more ratepayer-friendly IURC and OUCC who's looking at the cost of utilities across the state. And I think that's happening because folks understand affordability is what's going to drive people to the polls and make their decision at the polls.
Matt, you touched on this a little bit. When I talked to Lamia, I asked her specifically about gas prices. She said that is an issue for her, but she ranked it behind rent and utilities. She told me that basically if she had to prioritize them, she said it's kind of all of everything, but if she had to prioritize them, it would be rent first, then utilities, and then gas prices. Obviously, gas prices are in the news quite a bit right now because of the war with Iran. Matt, should candidates focus more on issues like rent and utilities going into these primaries and then on into November and less on gas prices?
Yeah, I think they should, because I think they have a story that we can tell in Indiana, one that we need to improve on, but there is a story to be told. There was a large affordable housing package this year. Unfortunately, it got winnowed down some during the session, but the legislature wanted to address the fact that, look, rents are high in part because we have no housing stock for people to live in. You know, I think that is what candidates need to talk about. When they talk about, utilities, they should talk about the fact that our IURC commissioners are on a statewide listening tour to understand the impact of high rates on Hoosiers. So I believe that's the right message for candidates. How will I address these real crises that you're facing as a family? And I think you'll see winning candidates a week from Tuesday on those message points.
Carly, what about wages? What role do you see those playing in broader campaign messaging surrounding affordability?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a very big part of the affordability. I know here in the state of Indiana, we haven't budged at all on wages. And I know I work in other states around the country that have, and that is something that does affect everyday Hoosiers. So wages are very important, and I think that's something Democrats have been talking about for a very long time, and it's long overdue conversation as well. But to continue the conversations on affordability, we know that Hoosiers are kind of exhausted from hearing the words affordability and what's affordable. They're really more interested in the details of the plans. They want to know, the folks that are running for office, how they're going to make things more affordable and not just use the key words of affordability and what that looks like. But wages are critically important to Hoosiers.
The former director of the Indiana Division of Child Services has a new job title, and it was not listed the way state job openings usually are. Adam Krupp is now Special Advisor to the Governor on child welfare issues. Krupp will take a $210,000 salary. There was no job description posted and no responsibilities listed. Carly, should taxpayers be concerned about that?
Absolutely. I definitely know, regardless of what side of the aisle you would be on, this is all about transparency. And if the position is so needed and it's such a great position, it should be very easy for us to be able to hear and learn more about the accountability, the measure for success, those kinds of things related. So I think it's more than the person. This is more about transparency. And yes, I think anybody would be concerned with a position with no details.
Matt, why not simply turn all the responsibilities over to the new DCS director?
Well, I think that Governor Braun recognizes that our DCS agency, our child welfare system in Indiana is broken, and it has been for a long time. It was when Carly and I served, it was before that. And I think that when you look at the developments this week, what I see the Braun administration saying is we want every good mind focused on this challenge of child welfare in Indiana as we possibly can have. And so Mr. Krupp returns and he moves into an advisory role. I think that assists in the handoff to the new director, ensures a very clean transition, ensures that there's a voice in the governor's ear, consistently talking about the importance of these issues, and it underscores the governor's commitment to the welfare of children across the state of Indiana to put someone in a senior role like that.
Do you foresee this as being a transitional role? Or do you think this could turn into a longer-term thing through the rest of the Braun administration?
Well, I don't have any insight into that, but I can tell you that that every administration that I've ever known could use as many good minds focused on this problem of child welfare in Indiana as possible. So it could very well be something long-term, but I'm sure the governor will let us know in the coming weeks what his vision is.
Carly, how unusual is it for a governor, any governor of either party, to create some sort of special advisory role like this?
I think it's very, I mean, my time, forgive me, I really can't remember that it would be normal at all. Again, I think this is seriously no political. It's just common sense that everyday Hoosiers in general, like, you don't create a position of $210,000 and have it open with no explanation, especially with the changes in the leadership. And you're right to ask the question of Matt, of who will be in charge. How does this create some uncertainty about that? So it looks like something's amiss. So I think Hoosiers are paying attention to that as well.
I've got a little less than a minute left here. I want to briefly address outgoing State Senator Andrea Hundley's announcement she's going to run for mayor of Indianapolis. Briefly, at least from where we stand right now, Carly, how would you rate her chances in the primary?
Yeah, I think she's got a pretty good shot at it. I think it's shaping up to be a really good primary. I think we've got some great candidates that have some good experience and have a true interest. I think it'll all come down to policies evolving around that public safety, affordability, and all of the important things that folks need here in the city.
Matt, briefly, about 15 seconds here. Of the Democrats who are running so far, which one should Republicans be most concerned about?
I think that Senator Hundley has been an exceptional leader in the Indiana State House, and I think that she will run a great campaign. Obviously, Mr. Ossoly has proven to be a tenured leader and a great campaigner.
We're going to have to leave it there. Matt and Carly, thank you so much. We will be right back.
The opinions expressed by guests on this broadcast are solely those of the individual speaking and do not necessarily reflect the views or policies of Wish TV.
Thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics. We'll be back here next Sunday morning at 9:30. Have a great rest of your weekend.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.